Hello everyone. Last week I have received numerous queries asking for what all criterias or factors do we consider before making any equity investment. So here, what we should draw a difference between qualitative and quantitative aspects of investment decision making. As far as equity investment is concerned, we deal into equity investment only. So as far as equity investment is concerned, let me bifurcate the weightage of qualitative and quantitative factors. Generally, when we think about finance and investments, we think about numbers. But number contributes only 30 to 35% of equity investment decision making as far as decision making is concerned. So remaining 60-65% is qualitative aspect. Majorly qualitative aspect will consider your business model of a company, how company is operating, what type of business model company is having, what type of distributionship company is having, what type of demand a company is having, what is the industry structure, I mean monopoly, oligopoly, duopoly, monopolistic or perfect competition, what type of dealership company is having, what type of future plans lined up down the line, and is the demand is more of a product than the supply, or supply is more of a product than the demand. Now when we talk about demand and supply, we generally have more than 100 factors to be considered, but we restrict our discussion as in demand is more or supply is more. Okay. And Porter's 5 horse model will contribute 20-25% of investments decision making. The company is having any bargaining power or not, or the supplier is having more of bargaining power, or the company is having more of bargaining power by supplier, bargaining power by buyers, and is there any threat to competition or not. Generally, when we study the theory of Porter's 5 horse model, we generally don't tend to give too much weightage to Porter's 5 horse model, but this is one of the most important factor to be considered while making any of the equity investment decision. So this will contribute again macroeconomic situation of a country, geopolitical risk, political risk, domestically how political parties are performing, internationally how political parties are performing, what is the superpower of the world, how superpower economy are contributing, what about the export data, what about the monthly sales data of a company, what about the political decision making impact, like recently we had GST and demonetization, broadly speaking, and these factors will be our country governance and the law and administration, and on top of that, what in certain manner how is the investment sentiment is going on, how is FII inflows into the country, how is domestic institutional investors inflows into the country, how DIIs and FII is performing. So whenever the market is closing at 3:25 p.m. daily, we have net FII buying and net DII buying. So this will give us the overall sentiment as in how market is doing. I mean, market is having positive sentiments towards future, or market is having negative sentiments towards the future. And as far as other qualitative aspects are concerned, how is the budgetary support given to the economy, how is the union budget, and how is the government policies, and what type of monetary policies that are we expecting, and is government is promoting the money supply or government is restricting the money supply, and stimulus factors by the government, like what type of budget the government is coming up with, what type of policy stances that the government is coming up with, what type of monetary policy stances that the RBI is coming up with, and how is the supply and demand of money into the economy, and how is rupee going to behave, rupee is going to appreciate against dollar, or rupee is going to depreciate against the dollar, and that type of thing will constitute 60 to 65% of equity investment decision making. So what are we concluding here is, whenever you think about any equity decision making, don't restrict yourself to numbers, don't restrict yourself to only financial statement analysis, don't restrict yourself to only valuation side of it, don't restrict yourself to only valuation model side of it, don't restrict yourself into to only forecasting side of it. And we need to look at all these factors, because at the end of the day, if you precisely analyze all these factors, all the qualitative factors will reflect into numbers. In the end, generally what we tend to think is, whenever the company is coming up with quarterly reporting, or when the company is coming up with annual reporting, what we generally conclude is, if we have any growth rate in revenue, if we have any decline in expenditure, or if we have any increase in net profit, then the company will perform good. But actually, how do we predict that on a quarterly basis, on a semi-annual basis, or on an annual basis, the company is going to do well? How do we predict? Based on the qualitative factors only. So based on qualitative factors will help us to predict what type of financials the company is going to come up with. So that would be the precise analysis of stock market. We should never ignore the budgetary support, we should never ignore the monetary policy, we should never ignore the interest rate, we should never ignore the inflation, we should never ignore the macroeconomic indicators that is prevailing at the time of your investment decision making. So this will constitute 60 to 65%, remaining will go to numbers, which is quantitative, which will cover your valuation, financial statement analysis, growth rate, forecasting, percentage forecasting, whatever it is. So whenever you are going to make any equity, and for the students, I would like to appeal here that whenever you are undergoing any financial studies, whenever you are pursuing your masters or bachelors with finance major, never ignore economics as a subject, never ignore the macroeconomics as a subject, and never ignore the political studies, because this is what will develop certain type of sentiments in the market, be it positive or negative. So sentiments plus macroeconomic situations plus numbers here will include your valuation, forecasting, and the financial statements. Everything will give the true picture of how stock market is going to behave in a certain direction. If you have any queries, please raise it to burningdesires.adi@gmail.com, or you can anytime press the call now button to our Facebook page. Thanks all, have a good luck, always support value investing.